Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Pete, Films and Stuff, we're back. As we've discussed, it is a big week for us. If our listeners haven't already heard, we did a huge breakdown of Top Gun Maverick, and now we get to talk about one of our other favorite topics, Star Wars franchise.
That's right, Ethan. We are back, and we are going to start so Disney Plus late Thursday night, early Friday morning, dropped the first 2 episodes of Obi Wan Kenobi.
Yep.
Their 6-episode season 1 run. I say season 1 because I don't know if it's going to be mini-series that ends with the first season, or if it's going to continue, or if it's going to branch off. We can maybe talk about that as well. But why don't we just jump in? What did you think? What are your feelings? What's your, how are you feeling about all this?
So I watched these 2 episodes breathlessly. And by that, I mean, I was refreshing, my browser. So as soon as they came out, I watched them. And so my excitement level was very high because I love Star Wars, of course. Obi-Wan was not my favorite character, and I don't think that he's the most compelling character, but obviously I've just got a huge appetite for anything Star Wars. So I was breathlessly anticipating this, and I watched them both back to back, and they're good, but I'm not yet wow, this is absolutely worth the wait. I can't wait for the next one to come out. It's, very good. What do you think?
Yeah, I gotta say, so Obi-Wan Kenobi we very quickly touched upon this before we started recording, but in episodes 4, 5, and 6, Obi-Wan Kenobi was maybe not the most dynamic character. Physically, emotionally, anything, right? He was just this old grandfatherly mentor figure to Luke, right? And
even even he was really only in episode 4, where even Luke said, I think you referred to him as that crazy old man Ben Kenobi, right? And then he was in 5 and 6 as a hologram-ish.
Force Ghost.
Force Ghost.
Yeah, and as you rightly pointed out, especially after episodes 4, 5, and 6, when we were kids, it's not like when we were playing after school or during recess, any of us wanted to be Ben Kenobi, right? We were happier being Han
or Luke
or Leia or Chewbacca, anyone else, really.
Yeah.
I think it was the prequel trilogy that really kicked things off into high gear for the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Ewan McGregor, I think, is owed a lot of respect for the way that, he was recast as a younger Obi-Wan, and he really owned that role and made it that we probably associate him more than Alec Guinness with that role, right?
Yet, having said that, I will take it one step further and say that Ewan McGregor was so reverential to Alec Guinness that by the end of episode 3, you saw flashes and glimpses of Obi-Wan Ewan McGregor turning into Obi-Wan Alec Guinness.
True.
Certainly in mannerisms, certainly in the way he spoke. I really appreciated that he was listen, at the end of the day, Alec Guinness is someone who is a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
I can't compare myself to him. So as out of respect to him, I'm going to make sure that when people see that my version of Obi-Wan, I want them to know that this is as good as I can get it to be to Alec Guinness's character.
Yeah.
And I think he got it. And I think he's definitely you're going to get there by the end of series 1 of this show. Right. And so we ended Top Gun's review by talking about how we don't typically see our protagonists show a lot of vulnerability, or certainly that's not the case that we used to see, certainly in the 60s, 70s, 80s. That wasn't the idea, right? When you thought of your hero, he or she was always strong, was always very capable. You didn't see any faults or weaknesses in them. And, in the sense, at least not morally, right? I mean, yes, you saw weaknesses like, Superman is weak to kryptonite, for example. But you never saw Superman's failings as a man. You saw Superman's failings only because he was betrayed by kryptonite, not because, he was battling inner demons of some kind, because that was kind of shunned. That kind of talk was shunned, right? And here now, I think we are seeing an Obi Wan Kenobi, at least certainly in episodes 1 and 2, that's kind of a broken man. The series, we don't know what's going on fully. It takes place 10 years after the end of episode 3.
Yep.
So he's been on Tatooine for 10 years. He's looking after Luke.
Yep.
He is that creepy neighbor that's looking after his neighbor's kid. He's leaving presents that the father doesn't want. Mm-hmm. He's leaving, he's seeing injustice around him, but unlike his old school Jedi days, he is not acting on that injustice because he's a man who's not just in hiding from the Inquisitors. And, we'll touch upon that as well. But I think we're also seeing a man who's kind of like emotionally vulnerable and broken because his trauma is that he trained Anakin Skywalker, and Anakin Skywalker is now Darth Vader, and he believes he failed him because as far as he knew, Anakin was dead.
Yeah.
And then, of course, by the end of episode 2, and we're going to jumble episodes 1 and 2 together because really I think the two of them combined are really the intro to the series. By the end of episode 2, he learns that Anakin is still alive and that Anakin is the Sith Lord Darth Vader.
So that is the big spoiler for Obi-Wan. However, I have to say there was something that caught me about this, which is when he was informed that Anakin is still alive. I'm really surprised that anyone would speak about Lord Vader in his human name. I'm really surprised that someone because to Ewan McGregor or to Obi-Wan, he doesn't know the word Darth Vader. He only knows Anakin Skywalker, who he thought died. Yeah. I'm really surprised that it was so quickly in episode 2 that they said, hey, Vader, which doesn't mean anything to Obi-Wan, is alive. Anakin Skywalker. I'm really surprised that someone would actually would put those names together. I thought that everyone in the universe, especially in the Empire, would know him as Darth Vader, not who he was originally. I thought that was a blunder. Do you agree?
I don't think that was a blunder. Actually, I think that was very shrewd. And let me tell you my theory.
Yeah.
So the Inquisitors are basically a group of, we don't know the exact number, but it's effectively a group of 10 to 15. The numbers are in canon, in Star Wars canon, uncertain, right? We don't exactly know how many they are, but basically are a group of force-sensitive beings that were taken on by Darth Vader and Sidious to hunt out any other force-sensitive beings or Jedi after Order 66 was executed. The Inquisitors are also made up of ex-Jedi or by ex-younglings who were training. And so it's implied, although I'm not sure, and this could be maybe me overreaching and overthinking. You know how the opening sequence we see the beginnings of Order 66 and we see a group of younglings escaping? I think one of them was actually the third sister Inquisitor, Reva, who becomes this Inquisitor. And she
That's
would know him as Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
And she would also know Obi-Wan. So I think for her, this mission is like a little bit personal that way. And I think she's going after him. And that's why I think she calls him out as Anakin.
That's very clever. I have to give you a lot of credit there, Pete. But do you have an issue, though? It seems like the third sister was really the only of that group of 4 Inquisitors, right? 3 or 4, that was really, really like hell-bent on tracking down Obi-Wan, right? She was really like fanatic.
She's like super aggressive about it.
Yeah. And I'm a little bit surprised that the other 3 were a little bit like lackadaisical about it. Like, obviously they were going after Jedi, but it didn't seem like they had the same like passion for Obi-Wan, that if this was really from Vader, right? And that's what the third sister kind of said. Well, this is a directive from Lord Vader. He wants to track you down. He set us out to find you. I'm surprised that the others weren't like equally fanatical and wouldn't also do whatever it took. Kidnapping someone, it should be nothing for them, right? I'm just a little bit surprised that they made this I guess like distinction between that group of Inquisitors.
I think so for me, and again, I have a little bit of knowledge of the Inquisitors from the video games and from some of the older TV series, but I think it's also, it's just a function of the way the dark side works, is that the dark side, the people who are like excel at the dark side are the ones who are the most driven and the most ambitious and the most quote unquote evil and obviously mustache twirling bad guys. And I think the other thing is that the Inquisitors in general are like hired guns, which is to say they follow a structure, they follow their orders. It's really the Grand Inquisitor who is the one who's been tasked with finding Obi-Wan. And everybody else has kind of been tasked with just kind of, you go out and find everybody else. Obi-Wan is mine, right? And so she, I think, wants to curry favor with Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader. And the best way to do that would be to be the one who wrangles Obi-Wan. Again, and I don't want to come off as me trying to defend this show or trying to, read too much into it. There's nothing to defend because the show is very early in its stages. I don't really have an opinion one way or another. When the show was first announced, I rejoiced because I loved Ewan McGregor. But then I also remembered how the sequel trilogy was going, and I said, oh my God, I'm worried because I'm cautiously optimistic because I know that the creative team has gotten a lot better at Lucasfilms. But I'm still a little worried because I also know that people like Kathleen Kennedy, when they get their mitts onto something, they really have a tendency to ruin things.
So if you made a good point. Let's start from the beginning, right? So Ewan McGregor or Obi-Wan, right? They're synonymous in my mind. After the birth of Luke and Leia, he split them up, right? And Jimmy Smits obviously took Leia, and then he gave Luke to
his uncle,
to the Lars family,
to his actual uncle,
his
which is
uncle.
Weird, but okay.
Do you think it was a good idea or a bad idea, maybe not expecting that he'd be hunted down by the Inquisitors? Do you think it was a good idea for Obi-Wan to basically hide on the same planet, Tatooine, and kind of like be basically a voyeur or a stalker, and just kind of like watching the kid every night with binoculars?
Yeah, he's kind of like a creepy Secret Service agent, right?
Right? Like, should he have just gone somewhere totally different? Or do you think it was, hey, I didn't know that I'd be tracked down by Inquisitors. Now it's kind of too late.
Yeah.
Is that a strategic move or not a strategic move by him?
So in one hand, it's a strategic move because, of course, you want to look out. And the idea, and he alludes to that. He's like, when the boy comes of age, it's my job to train him. Right?
Yeah.
He alludes to that. So on one hand, it's strategic. But on the other hand, it's so funny because so Darth Maul is alive. In the canon, he's alive. And Darth Maul in another TV show actually confronts Obi-Wan on Tatooine before Luke is really old enough. And you learn about this in, I think it's the Clone War. No, in Rebels. Okay, it's the TV show Rebels. And Darth Maul comes to exactly the same conclusion you came to, which is like, why would a man like Obi Wan Kenobi hide himself on a planet like Tatooine? Yeah. And then he puts two and two together. He's like, you're not hiding. You're here looking after something. And then he's like, you're here looking after the one. And then he's like, I have to kill the one, which causes Obi-Wan to finally kill Darth Maul for the final time. Right? So you're absolutely right. And your thought process is exactly the same that we've seen in Darth Maul. I don't know if that says more about Darth Maul being like Ethan or like Ethan being more like Darth Maul.
Thank you either way.
But your logic is absolutely correct. I would say that's the light side versus the dark side thinking, which is to say one is more strategic, which is to say, how can I protect my asset if I can't see my asset? And the other is to say, the best way to protect my asset is to pretend like I'm projecting onto something else.
Yeah. Okay. So that's point number one. And then, but I like the way that they portray him kind of in episode 1, right? Which is he's totally trying to blend in. He's living a very, very modest life. Not showing off.
He's a fishmonger.
He's obviously got his own like emotional issues with what happened with Anakin. I thought that was a very realistic portrayal of him. The same thing. Like 10 years later, that's kind of how I imagine him to be, and that also seems consistent with what we've seen with episode 4, which is again he was crazy old Ben Kenobi. It's not sure like how Luke ever was introduced to him. Maybe we'll find out. Then, of course, the Inquisitors come and they get out of that jam. And then the issue is Jimmy Smits, right, comes to him and says, hey, Leia has been kidnapped. How do you feel about the portrayal of Leia? And how do you feel about the kidnap scene? And how do you feel about Jimmy Smits sending the tracking call for help and then coming to meet him in his cave? Like,
I loved Leia. First of all, I did not expect to see any of Leia or certainly not this way.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that she would be what would appear to be an integral part of the show. So when I saw her, I instantly recognized her because she's got the prototypical Leia hairstyle with the braids in a bun.
Yep.
I was so happy to see her.
Yeah.
I was so happy. I think the actor, whoever her name is, wonderful job. I was so happy to see her. And I like that you can see traces of her being a rebel already.
She's very
standing up.
She's very precocious.
That is putting it mildly. Yeah. I loved it. I love that, she's protective of others. Yeah. She looks after droids. Yeah. She's got all the traits that we see are going to evolve into the Leia that we know and love from episodes 4, 5, and 6. Partially 7, but 4, 5, and 6. I really, really, really like that. She's more interested in being in her, for lack of better words, wearing her trousers and sitting on a tree, talking about how boring some of the ships are, versus in a fancy ball gown and, schmoozing with senators. What I thought was a great throwback to Padme was the fact that she used a decoy in the opening scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's the same thing that we saw Natalie Portman do in episodes 1, 2, and 3 countless times.
Correct.
I thought that was a great throwback as to, this is definitely Padme's daughter.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
What did you think? But what did you think though of the kidnapping? How did you feel about that? I felt it was, and did you notice who the kidnapper was?
I was so weird to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers do this.
Flea.
Flea, yeah. It's so weird to see Flea do this. I thought it was fine. I thought that was in terms of, big brain plays, I thought that was exactly what you would expect an Inquisitor to do, is to frame a kidnapping and not knowing, by the way, that they have Anakin Skywalker's daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. I didn't have a problem with it.
I'm not clear, though, exactly how the Inquisitors linked Ben Kenobi to Leia.
Oh, there was one throwaway line. It wasn't about Leia. It was about the Organas, about Jimmy Smits.
Yeah.
She had gone through the archives and seen a connection between Obi-Wan and Organa. And so she thought that if they kidnapped Organa's children, he would reach out to Obi-Wan to get him back, which is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
He played himself perfectly.
Yeah. Okay. So well played.
It was a throwaway line,
Yeah.
but it was, again, so this is what I was talking about that they didn't do in Top Gun, that they do in superhero movies and these kinds of movies, is it's a minor quibble, but they just throw out a simple line which explains that quibble away. And even if you don't buy it, at least they say it. So you're just like, okay, mind cleared. I get the link now. We move on.
They kidnap Leia. Jimmy Smits sends the distress beacon to Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan ignores it. Jimmy Smits, not taking no for an answer, obviously knows that he's on Tatooine. Not clear how. Okay.
Oh, that was said at the end of episode 3.
Episode 3? 2.
Yeah, in the movie. Star Wars episode 3. They say when
they say that he's going to go to Tatooine?
Yeah, he said, well, because Jimmy Smith's character specifically says, I would like to take the girl. My wife has always wanted to.
Yeah, he said we always wanted to adopt a daughter. Yeah.
And Obi-Wan says, I will take the boy to Tatooine and I'll look after him there.
So he finds his cave. He goes to meet Obi-Wan and says, look, you're the only guy who I can trust. You're the only guy to do it. Obi-Wan says, fine, I'll do it. Gets on the ship and
takes his lightsaber and take Darth Vader's lightsaber, or Anakin's lightsaber, by the way, both of them.
And tracks them down how?
I missed that. I can't remember. I must have missed it. I can't remember, but they know.
I'm not clear how they ended up on that planet. What is it? Is it a planet or a space station? It's a planet?
Planet. It's basically a cyberpunk planet.
Yeah. It's not clear how they ended up there, but
I missed it, but I'm sure they have a reason for that as well.
So then he goes, it's obviously a trap, right? He goes in and he finds whatever.
A fake Jedi and Kumail Nanjiani.
Right. Oh, yeah.
This con artist.
Oh, yeah. That's a nice, I guess, cameo by him, huh? I thought he played that kind of.
Yeah, I don't know, because it's more than a cameo. I looked on IMDb. He's got a few episodes.
Yeah, he's credited in 5 episodes.
Yeah, so there's going to be, he's going to show up again.
Yeah.
And I think, for someone who's a con artist, though, when you know that Inquisitors are out there looking for Jedi, it's a pretty stupid thing to do, even for a con artist, to claim that you are a Jedi to try to con people out of money.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit surprised by that.
I agree. So, yeah, it's pretty bold. Obi-Wan eventually tracks down Organa. He rescues her. And here's where I got a little bit annoyed with episode 2. Like episode 1, I was pretty okay with. Organa's like a 10-year-old kid, a little bit annoying, fine. She's precocious. I thought there were 2 blunders, or maybe 1 blunder and 1 annoying thing. The blunder was Obi-Wan says, how old are you? And she says 10. He says, you don't act like a 10-year-old. He knows how old she is.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows who she is when she was born. He knows that she's 10.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a mistake, an intentional mistake.
No, I think that was intentional. I think that was him trying to also just kind of point that out to her.
Yeah.
Act like your age.
I mean, he could have said like, hey, you're 10. Anyway, like there's a different line there, but I thought it was kind of strange. Like he had to ask. He knows. And then the second part is, I get it. Like I saw that first scene where she ran away from the kidnappers and she used, her little legs and her little frame to duck under trees and through trees and kind of made the kidnappers look like a little bit buffoonish for a while. Okay, fine. I saw that scene. When she did it again to kind of evade Obi-Wan, I was like, dude, if you've ever chased like a 10-year-old, it's enough. I get it that she didn't really trust the guy and that was okay. But I thought that I was a little bit annoyed the second time she tried to run away from Ewan McGregor and just kind of like outwit him using, her slight frame to like duck under things. I mean, she's 10. She's not that fast. He could have like tracked her down. And then, of course, she got him involved in the firefight. And then, of course, the third sister saw the firefight. I was just maybe nothing really wrong with that scene, and maybe it served its purpose. But for me, I thought this was part of the reason that I was like not overly enthusiastic about these 2 episodes, is I thought that was just not Star Wars special, maybe,
Fair enough.
Am I reading that wrong, though?
I don't know if you're reading it wrong or right. Again, I think we're a little too early at this stage. What I think this episode did really well, and by this episode I mean these 2 episodes did really well, is they're really, I think, they're not to show off Leia, not to really show off anything like that. I think more than anything, the idea of these 2 episodes is to give you the mindset and the framing of where Obi-Wan is in his life, not just physically, because you can tell he's kind of like a little out of shape compared to his episodes 1 through 3 things. And I don't mean that he looks chubby or anything. I mean in the sense that, yes, he's struggling to keep up with a 10-year-old.
He's
not been doing any training, nothing. Mm-hmm. But also gives you a framing of his mindset. Yeah. And I think the real purpose of these 2 episodes, and God, I hope this is right. I don't know if this is right, if this is wrong, but I think what he has done is, after believing Anakin to be dead, and after leaving him for dead in Mustafar, right, at the end of episode 3, he saw that as a personal failing of himself. And it's obviously something that keeps him up at night, right? He has nightmares. We see him have a nightmare about it. I think what's happened with that is that he has voluntarily cut himself off from the Force. So I think that, he, and we've seen this in Star Wars canon, Jedi have the ability to say no and reject the Force. And I think that's what he's done, which is why it's so weird that he's got his lightsaber, but like you see him use a gun, right? And not just shoot, but like he threatens people with a gun. Whereas in episode 2, very clearly, he looks at guns with disdain, right? He says, oh, what an uncivilized weapon, and chucks away the blaster in episode 2 of the movies. And here you see him use a blaster, or at least wield one, and not the lightsaber. And of course, I get it. You want to wield blasters over lightsabers because you also don't want to attract attention to the fact that you're a Jedi. Fine. But then you also see that he's kind of sluggish. And then you also see when Leia falls off that clothesline at the end of the episode, and before she hits the ground, he uses the Force. You see that it's a real struggle for him to use the Force. Yeah. And like, it looks like she's a goner. And then at the very last possible second, he reconnects. He uses the Force to slow her down. That's when she starts trusting him. It's because she's like, oh my God, you are a Jedi. At the end of the episode, we see him make the connection to Anakin using the Force, right? Because he closes his eyes and he sees Anakin in that Bacta tank. Yeah. And that's why I think episodes 1 and 2 were just like, look, we have a man who's not necessarily physically broken, but he's out of shape. He's a Jedi warrior who at the prime of his life could take on anybody. Disconnected from the Force, or at least is so rusty in the Force that he doesn't know how to use it effectively or wield it. And maybe he's also disconnected from the Force because he's hiding from these Inquisitors, and the Inquisitors can also use the Force. Remember, you see Reva grab the information from Kumail Nanjiani's character's head, right, using the Force. So you see a lot of these things which are, I think, set up for episodes 3 through 6, which is to say, we want you to understand that this is not the Obi-Wan that you know from episodes 1, 2, and 3 of the movies. And this is not yet the Obi-Wan that you know from episode 4 of the movie. So how do we get this supremely capable, confident, young Obi-Wan from episode 3 to the old, wizened, seemingly senile Obi-Wan of episode 4?
I mean, that makes good sense. I think you're right in terms of the narrative that they have to make And maybe that's the trick of the series, which is to try to make an action series or expand on the canon of Obi-Wan and some of these characters. But I was still lukewarm about it. I would say that, I mean, again, if we're giving ratings, I'm at a mooch right now. I mean, I guess I'm at a mooch, but given the importance of this, I tend to say it's important enough to subscribe so that you can see this if you're a Star Wars fan. But if it's just what's the entertainment value of each of these episodes, it's mooch. And those are some of the little things that bother me that maybe they should not, because you've kind of explained that they're for good reason. But I guess I hold Star Wars to a little bit of a higher standard.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's part of the reason, like, when I was watching Leia just kind of like outrun people and make them look a little bit buffoonish, I was like, look, this isn't like one of these like comedic movies where, it's not Home Alone, where you find these buffoonish kidnappers and Macaulay Culkin's, like running circles around them. Like, this is a princess, just shoot a net at her, capture her right away, like she runs away from Ewan McGregor. Ewan McGregor should be like ducking under something and runs into Ewan McGregor. He should already be in front of her, you don't have to make it like so buffoonish like that. I thought that she was a very good character. We haven't seen anything of Luke except from a distance. Apart from that, I'm okay with it, but
I'm with you, and I fully understand. The reason I'm at a mooch is that you have to look at these episodes, and the whole point of this is that we look at the show individually from other shows. Yeah. Right? I would say that it's a mooch on that basis, and I think that a lot of that fact that it's mooch is for two reasons. One, first of all, we're only 2 episodes into 6. Yeah. There's still acts 2 and 3 to come. So that's why obviously we want to hold off on any major judgment. And that's why I'm trying my best not to be heavily critical nor defend it at the same time, because we don't know what's going to happen in the coming season. But also, you're absolutely right. This show in particular bears extra weight that perhaps The Mandalorian didn't, because even though it's set in the Star Wars like Mandalorian is disconnected from any of the movies.
Right.
It is its standalone show. It has no baggage of Star Wars, the Skywalker saga. Yeah. We've seen some great cameos, but it doesn't. That's not required viewing.
Yeah.
This is directly connected to Anakin's and Luke's story in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah.
So.
And Leia. This is really
and clearly
important,
Leia,
which we didn't know going into this, or at least I didn't know going into this.
We didn't, but it kind of makes sense, because remember at the beginning of episode 4, we see that she sends a message specifically to Obi Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope.
You're the only hope. So how does she know him?
Yeah.
So we have to see a little bit of that as well.
Yeah.
Right.
If we go back before Episode 4, A New Hope, right? Episode 4 opens where she's on this she's on a spacecraft, right? And it's after it's after Rogue One, right? So we see how she got this disc of the plans of the Death Star. We don't know though how she went from being kind of the princess in waiting, and she's called a princess in that movie.
Yeah.
To actually being involved in this mission where she's on that Star Destroyer and gets the plans, right?
That's right. And I don't think we're going to see any of that. I don't think we're going to see any of that.
Would we be fair to say that on that Star Destroyer, Episode 4, New Hope, she's 22 years old? 26 years old?
Yeah, max. Yeah. I think she's going to be like... So she's 10 now. I think she's going to be like in her late teens, early 20s, because that's the same age Luke is, right? Yeah. Luke is also like late teens, early 20s when we see him pick up his dad's lightsaber from Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Right? He's still that, snot-nosed moisture farmer who doesn't want to go to the spaceport to do the work for his dad, for his uncle.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's about right. Okay.
I don't think we're going to see Leia's transition into that, or at least I hope I don't, because I think, it's another thing where you don't necessarily want to see how the sausage is made. We've seen her as a precocious young kid.
Yeah.
I like that for her. I like that for this series. And unless the series is going to do time jumps, which I don't think it is, I think let's keep her at 10 for the rest of the season. Let's, get that bond between Obi-Wan and Leia, because they clearly have a bond, right? Otherwise, why would she send the true droids and the message at the beginning of Star Wars to him? That's where I think we are.
If you're just speculating, Pete, if we think this through, right?
Yeah.
She is kidnapped at 10 years of age, and now everybody, including Vader, knows that there is a link between her and Obi-Wan, right? Let's say he rescues her, still age 10. Let's say it even takes a year, age 11, returns her back to her family where she's still Princess Organa. Like, isn't it just pretty clear? Like, look, we can just go after her again and again. She's got this, special connection with Obi-Wan, right? That's the link between them. I'm not sure. Like, okay, he returns her home and then he goes back into hiding.
I don't see that. First of all, in terms of plot, that's boring to keep doing the same trope again and again.
It is, but doesn't the Empire, from the mindset of the Empire, they're like, hey, we know exactly who the link is. Why don't we go after her again?
Yeah, I think that's also predicated on the fact that Darth Vader finds out about this link. I don't think he does, because I think it stays with the Inquisitors, and I think that's what we're going to find out through this series. I think that information dies with the Inquisitors.
I see. Okay. Because that would be like quite important or valuable information to him, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And remind me, does Anakin know that he does know that Padme had 2 children, right?
Anakin doesn't know he has kids at all.
Was that right?
Yeah, he doesn't figure it out until episode 4 or episode 5, because she dies. She dies. He strikes
in childbirth.
Her. Yeah, no, but he strikes her. She gets passed out. Obi-Wan and Anakin have the fight. Anakin gets destroyed by Obi-Wan. Right. Obi-Wan flies off with Padme, who's pregnant. And then when he next wakes up as Darth Vader, Palpatine tells her, "You killed her." That's why for him it's such a blow in episode 4 or 5 when he figures out that Luke is his kid.
How does he figure?
Force. I think it's through the Force. I haven't seen 5 in years, but if I remember correctly, he figures it out that he's the son because of the Force connection.
Does he figure it out,
or there's through something with Obi-Wan?
Does he figure it out in 4 or in 5?
Yeah, again, I haven't seen either of those movies in a few years now, and I can't remember off the top of my head.
He says it in 5.
Yes, he admits to it in 5. Now, the question is, does he know in episode 4 or does he know in episode 5? I think he knows in episode 5. I don't think he knows in episode 4. Because if he knew in episode 4, it wouldn't be such a mind-blowing shock to us as viewers in episode 5.
Yeah, you're right.
I think he figures it out during the series, during the events of episode 5, and then he spoils it to everybody.
So then when he has Leia in episode 4, he does not know that's his daughter.
Exactly. And likewise, she doesn't know that's her father.
Yeah. What? Luke
and that doesn't, and he doesn't get tipped off. He doesn't get tipped off because she's not trained in the Force.
Yeah.
So even though she's Force sensitive, she's not trained in the Force, so she doesn't tap into the Force ever until obviously we realize that she does later.
Which makes 8 so much worse. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then remind me, when do Luke and Leia find out that they're brother and sister? Is it the end of 4 or is it 5?
No, I think actually at the end of 6. He figures it out in 5 when he's training with Yoda. Because remember, he thinks about it and he's like, "Oh my god!" And then I think she and he both realize it together.
Yeah, because they're with like the Ewoks at the end of
They're
6.
celebrating. Han comes up to her
and then Han's
says,
like,
okay,
so
I'm going to
shocked.
hands off. I get it. And
Yeah.
she's like, no,
It's
he's
my
my
brother."
brother.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So every episode, there's like a new...
Some
Yeah.
reveal like that. But in episode, I'm pretty sure it's in Dagobah with Yoda that he figures out that Leia is his sister.
Yeah, I think that's right. There's a lot. I mean, Obi-Wan is a very, very critical show then in order to kind of bridge this gap between what we know between 3 and 4.
Totally.
It's really, really
he is
important.
the linchpin.
He is the linchpin. Yeah. So the lore of the Inquisitors is primarily coming from where? It's coming from the books?
It's coming from the Clone Wars animated series, Rebels animated series, and then from a video game called Jedi Fallen Order, which came out like maybe 4 years ago.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you get to actually see them and you know them and, so yeah, that's what I know of the Inquisitors primarily from Rebels and from Fallen Order. I didn't see all of the Clone Wars, but I know that some of them were a part of the Clone Wars.
So Hayden Christensen is credited in 6 episodes in this. Mm-hmm. Is his appearance limited to this scar-faced, in the tank, masked Anakin character, or are we going to see him?
Oh no, we see him as full Darth Vader. He in interviews he was talking about how he had to wear the suit. It was like 60 pounds, not bathroom break friendly, so he had to be careful what he ate or drank before he filmed his scenes.
So we're not actually seeing him as the young Anakin. We're just seeing him as a present day, scarred up.
Yeah, we're seeing him,
Vader Anakin.
Yeah, we're still seeing him 10 years after episode 3. He's still heavily damaged and scarred. And remember, we also saw that in episode 4. You see the back of his head as the helmet comes down from the ceiling.
I mean, I thought the ending of 4 was, I still remember seeing this in the theater. And I thought this was exceptional in showing, how he became Darth Vader, which to be honest, I also think took away a lot of the mystery, which is, for better or for worse, some of the lore of Darth Vader was the mystery of like how he became this person, how he transformed from Anakin Skywalker. 4 obviously like just kind of like ripped the bandage off and it showed it in all its glory. But I don't know. So Hayden Christensen, we're not going to see him as the youthful young Anakin. We're only seeing him as a present day scarred, or
we're going to see him like fully
Vader.
Scarred or wearing the Vader outfit.
Yeah. And you think the Inquisitors are well aware that Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker?
I think some of them are, which means I think all of them are. Yeah.
But you think Vader told them?
No, because remember, some of the Inquisitors are ex-Jedi.
You think they saw it from like the...
So they would have seen
younglings.
him. They would have seen him. They would have heard him kill all the other younglings. Because remember, he kills a bunch of younglings in episode 3 as well.
But do they know that he became Darth Vader? Like they would have known him as Anakin, but how? Even if they saw him go through that...
Yeah, I think they do because of the Force connection.
Oh, really? That's how?
I think so. I mean, okay. I don't know, but I think that's the easiest way to say it. It's not like they have like an orientation, around a conference table with like some cakes and cookies, and everyone's wearing the high.
You may know me as Anakin. Yeah,
exactly,
I mean, right? my sense of of how this was, and this is mostly from 4, 5, 6. It's not so much anything else, but I always thought it was him and the Emperor who kind of knew his true, quote unquote, identity.
Yeah.
And that to everyone else in the galaxy, it was like, who is this monster? Yeah. It's Darth Vader. They don't even know that there's like a human out there, right?
And remember in episodes 4, from episodes 4 onwards, we've never heard of the Inquisitors, right? So I imagine that they don't survive through episode, the gap between 3 and 4.
Yeah, and I also recall that there was a scene, I want to say it's in 5, where one of the generals kind of comes into Vader's quarters. And he was like sitting in that chair and his helmet was just kind of going on, right?
As it comes down from the ceiling. That's right.
Yeah. And it was kind of like, oh, sorry, I didn't know you were like changing.
Dressing yourself.
Yeah. And that was like, even for me as a kid, like a very big reveal at the time, like you didn't know what he was otherwise, right? Yeah. I think you just saw the back of kind of
when I first saw him, I thought he was a robot, right?
Exactly.
I thought he was a Force-sensitive robot.
Exactly.
Because he had all the lights on his chest and everything. Yes. So that's what I thought. The helmet comes down and you're just like, oh, that's a man underneath
this.
What I think is, and they never explicitly say it to your point, but I think it's maybe is common knowledge that Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker, because if you think about it, everyone refers to the Emperor as Emperor Palpatine. They don't call him Darth Sidious, even though that's what his name is, right? His name is Darth Sidious / Sheev Palpatine. That's his human name, is Sheev Palpatine. Everyone calls him Sheev Palpatine. I always knew him as Emperor Palpatine more than I knew him as Darth Sidious.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would be a shocker if people were like, yes, I know him, Darth Vader. His name is Anakin Skywalker. I don't think it would be a super shock.
Okay. Let's go back to Tatooine, because there's going to be a separate series on Tatooine, right?
What do you mean by a separate series?
Is there going to be a Disney series Tatooine, or this is it?
I don't know about Tatooine. I know there's one called Andor, which is about
you're right.
Andor.
There's going to be one about Andor, yeah.
Yeah, so that I think will be all over the place. And that will be, I think that's going to be close to the same time this is going on. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see an Andor cameo to set up the Andor show.
What happens on Andor in the lore? Can't even remember.
No idea. Because for me, so Andor is that guy's name, right? Captain Andor from Rogue One, Diego Luna's character.
What happens in where does Rogue One take place? What planet is this?
So the Serapis, it takes place on a couple planets. Yeah. You see the home planet.
Yeah. I can't remember where Rogue One takes place.
The most of it takes place on the beaches of the planet where they keep the information on the Death Star. Yeah, but what Serapin or Sarah something?
Is that what it's called?
That's the name of that planet. I can't remember the name.
Yeah, nor can I. I want to find out, but I also don't remember. Okay, can we go back? What is it?
Scarif.
Scarif?
Yeah, that's the name of the planet where they have the massive battle to steal the data.
Scarif. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. One more question to tap into your Star Wars knowledge. So, Owen is the uncle of Obi-Wan?
No, uncle of Luke. Anakin's mom's brother.
It's Anakin's mom's brother. He doesn't have any Force abilities that we're aware of, right?
That we're aware of, correct.
And Vader is.
And I don't think he ever did.
I wish I knew more about how, like, he actually took in Luke. And maybe that's coming, but I mean, it just seems very strange because the history is that Obi-Wan basically just showed up at his farm and said, here's a baby, but didn't apparently tell him who the baby is, right?
No, he knows.
He knows that it's his.
He knows that it's his nephew.
Oh.
He knows. That's the primary reason he doesn't want anything to do with Obi-Wan, is because he doesn't want him to get involved with the Force again or do anything. That's why he's been very protective of Luke. At least that's my read on it. Listeners, please don't, if I'm wrong, please don't lambaste us in the comments. Let us know.
I mean, I'll take the lambasting because I probably deserve it, but a lot of these are for me, there are a lot of very discrete questions that are not immediately clear. I mean, Pete's read more of the books and seen more of the animated series than I have. So I'm just not clear on some of the finer points, but it's kind of like...
they're not super clear for me either all the time. They're a little fuzzy. I will admit that, But my feeling and my opinion is that Owen is aware of who Luke is in terms of Anakin, and that it's his grandnephew, I guess.
So he would think that Anakin is dead as well then, presumably.
Right? Yes, because, I mean, that's what Obi-Wan would have told him, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of what everyone in the universe, I guess, thinks, except for kind of the Inquisitors then. Right? I mean, everyone kind of thinks that Anakin is dead. For all intents and purposes, Anakin died. No one really knows how he died. I mean, I guess Obi-Wan would really be the only person to say that he died.
I think anyone who's Force sensitive and who knew him would know. Because remember, Yoda... that's how it is. Luke figures out that Darth Vader is his dad because he goes into the cavern to face his greatest fear.
When he's on
Dagobah. And it's after that encounter that he realizes that Darth Vader is actually his father.
Does he realize it, or Yoda kind of like prompts him?
That's a little bit of prompting as well. Yeah.
And then he figures it out like, oh, that's my father.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. Okay, this is coming out. So there's going to be one episode a week that's going to come out?
Yep. It finishes sometime in June.
That's tough. So there's only four more, so another month, right?
It's weird. It's strange that they're doing it this way, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad. And you can tell we're now getting into the summer swing because Disney Plus is also releasing Kamala Khan, or I don't know if the show's called Marvel or Ms. Khan or Kamala Khan, whatever it's called. They're releasing that in June as well. Okay. It's the Ms. Marvel comics.
It's Ms. Marvel, yeah.
Yeah, there you go, Ms. Marvel. So that comes out in June as well.
Okay, what we should do then, Pete, if you agree, we saw the first two, we did an episode, we should do another two, and then at the end of the series, or at the end of the season, right?
Yes. At this time, my inkling is to say, let's hold off from doing an episode by episode breakdown. I don't think it's necessary.
We should wait until there's two more out.
At least two more out, if not the series. And of course, let's also reserve the right to change that schedule if something dramatically amazing happens. If all of a sudden in episode 3, Darth Vader comes out swinging his lightsaber against Anakin, you can bet your butts we're going to talk about it next week.
Do you think there's any likelihood that this is a one and done series? I think it's got to go at least 2 seasons, right?
My feeling is that the natural end point for this is, and I don't know if they're going to do it because they've already shown Darth Maul in the cartoons. They had the interaction between Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, but it's such an epic moment, and Darth Maul is such an iconic Star Wars villain, even though he was only in episode 1. He's still the guy who's the only one that we saw who sparked up a dual-bladed lightsaber. Yeah. He's still got the bladed head. A horned head. So everyone remembers him because he is a very memorable villain. I think it would be a shame not to show that because a lot of people didn't watch Rebels, even Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
And it is really a great, great, great moment. I imagine that that's what they would do, is have that sequence in here. I think it becomes a lot to do in one season. I don't think they're going to do more than 2, maximum 3, and even 3 is probably a stretch. I think 2 is more than enough.
Yeah.
I think in season 1, if they focus on Obi-Wan versus the sisters versus Darth Vader, and then in season 2, if they focus on Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul, I think you've got a lot. And I'm also hoping that we get to see a cameo with Qui-Gon Jinn before the end of the season.
Oh, that's big. That was really be a big missing character that we haven't probably seen enough of, right?
Yeah. I really like Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon. So, and they alluded to the fact that at the end of episode 3, they alluded to the fact that Qui-Gon had been in contact with Yoda as a Force ghost. So I'm hoping we get to see that with Obi-Wan, because now that I think this season is going to be about him shedding his demons about Anakin. Because remember, he doesn't really have those demons when he faces Darth Vader in episode 4. He faces him, he takes it on, and he's at peace when Anakin strikes him and kills him.
Yeah.
So I think that this season is going to be, that arc is going to be not a redemption arc, but it's going to be like a it's okay arc to go from episodes 1 through 6.
How do you think that George Lucas takes all of this? It's gotta be, does he have like any creative role whatsoever?
So I'm not sure officially. Probably they still call upon him to kind of be like an advisor.
It has
but
to be.
I don't think that he's got any like direct creative control.
It's got to be so uncomfortable for him, to be.
I don't know, man. If you gave me $4 billion to buy something of mine, I wouldn't care.
He sold at a fraction. He should have doubled that. He should have sold it at 8. It would still be a bargain, right?
But think about when he sold it. He sold it after the terrible episode 3 had come out. None of Rogue One had come out. He sold it at its low. He sold it at its low because, and frankly speaking, he wasn't going to get a better offer because I don't think George Lucas himself was capable of doing more. If he was going to be the creative director on all of these shows, he couldn't. Yeah. I don't see George Lucas coming up with The Mandalorian. I don't see him coming up with Rogue One. I don't see him coming up with 789 for whether it's good or bad. I just don't see him doing any of that.
Yeah.
I think he sold it to Disney. He said that when you buy this, you have to finish 789. Here's my creative vision for it. That's the terms of my sale. Anything beyond that, it's all on you.
Yeah. It's got to be. I can't imagine just sitting around and you think he's like, okay, I got to sign into my Disney Plus account. Let's see it. I can't wait to watch the new Obi Wan. And like, what is this?
No, but to be fair, give credit to Favreau and Filoni. Yeah. I think they've done a very good job.
I agree.
Again, take away 789. I think 789. Actually, I don't want to take it away because A, there was some good things about it, and B, we don't know what George Lucas would have done with 789. He could have made something even worse. He could have made something better. We'll never know.
Yeah, he's definitely the inspiration, for better or for worse, who created something really incredible, but
also marred with a lot of stains, right?
Yeah, marred with a lot of stains. And it's not even one that's my problem. And maybe not so much 2, but 3 for me is the crisis point.
Really? That's funny. I actually think the other way around.
Why? You think one started bad?
I thought episode 1 wasn't great. I thought episode 2 was better. I thought episode 3 was the best of the bunch.
Yeah, but episode 3 is the swing episode, right? That's why I give 1 so much, because 1 you could kind of almost do anything. All you have to do is kind of like set the scene for put it, it's basically like trajectory, right? It could have kind of went anywhere. For me, that's why they get progressively worse. Even though as standalone films, maybe they are better and better. 1 has really very little, I guess, relationship to the Star Wars, 4, 5, 6
that's true.
Knew and loved.
It was really only Obi-Wan at that point that was the linking factor to episodes 4, 5, and 6.
A very, very young Anakin who's just kind
But as you rightly said, he was so young that he was almost ineffectual or maybe uneventful to the storyline overall. Yeah. It's really episode 2 where you see Anakin rise up.
Right. And then 3, of course, everything just goes off the rails.
And then 3 is you're right. It is the swing for the fences movie.
Yeah.
It is the movie that swung for the fences, and it's also the movie that had the most to fill because it's the one that immediately led into 4. So it's the one that was also the most creatively constrained with what they could and couldn't do.
I mean, if you look at like one of the hardest, I guess, stories or plots to populate, it's got to be the justification for a good guy going bad, right? It's really one of the hardest things, I think, to pull off is to show in a very real, believable way, justifiably, why someone who may have, we've all got, our demons inside, right?
Sure.
But to show someone who definitively says, you know what? I'm going to be an evil bad guy. I'm going to embrace that role. Not an accidental or not I'm misunderstood or not I had to choose the lesser of two evils. One who just says, I'm going to become a psychopathic bad guy. That's a really, really hard thing, to write in a plot, in a script, and give that the dialogue. So and it's what we all wanted to see with Vader, right? We wanted to see how he transitioned from Anakin, who is a little bit of a rebel and, had a streak in him, to Vader, who just, wanted to choke to death anyone who gave him bad news. How he made that transition. And that's my problem with 3 is that I still don't believe it. I also don't believe it with Kylo Ren, by the way. I'm still not there with him either.
Yeah, 7, 8, 9, and maybe again, I think the older I've gotten, the more lenient I've become on the first 3 episodes. And that remains to be seen with 7, 8, 9. I don't see it happening for me where after, 10 years or 15 years, I forgive episodes 7, 8, 9 and start seeing the good for the bad. I don't see that. I think it just was so far off from what I expected.
I agree.
Or hoped for even.
Yeah. And I'm also, one of the things that bothered me about 7 was, remember Kylo Ren had that Vader helmet? And it was...
Yeah.
And it was
the one that he beats up in episode 8?
Yeah. And it was the shape or the form of it was kind of burned and kind of it was first of all, I don't know how you got that helmet. It shouldn't exist anymore. And even if you did, that's not what it would look like. The whole thing was just really frustrating to me. And it's surprising after botching Anakin's story that they could botch Kylo Ren as well. There's got to be a much better way that they could have written that other than the Luke kind of bedside nonsense,
Anyway, that's a discussion for maybe another day.
It is, but that's why Obi-Wan, I think, takes on so much importance for us, right? This is a chance to really write a better story in terms of what's happened in these. We don't know how many years these have been, right? It's probably somewhere between 8 to 12 year range between the Organa that we've seen now and the one that appears on the Star Destroyer, Star Cruiser in
episode 4.
In episode 4, right? That's a very
/ Rogue One. Yep.
Yeah, that's a very critical 8 to 10 years, 8 to 12 years gap to fill and to kind of understand how everyone became everyone, right?
Yeah.
And she's the person, we know Luke was just kind of like a farmer, right? Leia's the one who really had, the biggest character growth, right? So the stakes are high with this one. The stakes are high.
The stakes are high, but I trust the current creatives at Lucasfilm. I also really trust Ewan McGregor because I really like him. So that it goes back to me being I'm cautiously optimistic.
Okay, Pete, we've wrapped it up with Obi-Wan. Let's talk about this in another 2 episodes. And just to give readers, listeners, a short tease, what are some other things we've got upcoming that we need to
So at some point, we've been catching up, or at least I've been catching up, and I think so has Ethan. There's been a lot of shows out, a lot of TV on, a lot of movies on. So at some point, we are going to have to discuss, let me see.
Well, Ozark has ended. We could talk about Ozark.
There you go.
Tokyo Vice.
Oh, we definitely have to talk about Tokyo Vice. I really, really, really enjoyed Tokyo Vice.
Yeah.
Ozark, Tokyo Vice. Oh, and that's the other big thing. So Stranger Things season 4 dropped yesterday, the first half. The first 7 episodes or first 6 episodes dropped yesterday, and the remaining 3 will come out in June or July.
Then I think if we do a Stranger Things episode, I think first you should convince me. Maybe this should be a unilateral debate club. You should convince me why I should watch any of the Stranger Things, because I have not seen any single minute of Stranger Things, episode 1 or seasons 1, 2, 3, or 4. So first,
Okay.
I think you've got to convince me if this is a show worth watching.
I think it's a show worth watching.
You know what else we should talk about? Actually, urgently, Better Call Saul.
Oh my God! The last season's midpoint just released. We have another half of the season to go sometime later this year. Mind blown.
Pete is losing it right now. He almost melted out of his chair when I just said that.
Completely unexpected. Everything. Oh my God. There's so much to talk about. That's a great topic.
Can we do that one
Maybe
next?
Let's do that.
All right.
Let's do that one next instead of Stranger Things, because that's way more interesting.
Listeners, join us the immediately next subsequent episode. Ethan, Pete will break down Better Call Saul. We're midway through season 6. A lot of stuff is happening here. Okay.
All right, everybody.
Thank you, Pete.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
your time.
listeners.
Remember, aloha at filmsandstuffpodcast.com.
Aloha.
Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. We're on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you want us, we're there.
We are there. All right. Catch us next episode.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.